Hey, are you ready to take your flying skills to the next level? Are you ready to learn the secrets of landing a Cessna 172 under control every time? Well, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'll be revealing my top 5 secrets your instructor isn't telling you about landing a Cessna 172. So get ready to learn the secrets of becoming a landing pro. Hey, my name is Josh. Welcome to the channel. As an instrument pilot with very limited experience, I share my struggles in hopes that it'll help some of you out there. All right, the first secret is knowing the difference between a flare and a round out. A flare is putting your nose above level, where rounding out is leveling out. So for example, when you're coming into land right before you touch down, a flare is when you kind of pop like that. A round out is when you coming into land and you kind of just level off. You just kind of float there in ground effect for a little bit. I used to think round out and flare used to be interchangeable. So when people would say round out, they really meant flare. And when they said flare, they really meant round out. But the reality is they're two different things, and you need to understand what the differences are, kind of help you better land more safely. Yeah, now that you know the difference between a round out and a flare and that they're not interchangeable, I hope you're not doing this next mistake, which is overshooting final. Yeah, one way I keep from overshooting final is by turning a little bit sooner. That allows me to get on center line, the final, a little bit slower, and allows me not to have to bank as hard. As a newer pilot, this is gonna help you get better at your approach. The next thing that'll keep you from overshooting final is by banking a little bit harder. As a newer pilot, it can be nerve-wracking at times to bank the plane, but getting more comfortable banking at steeper angles will also help you. If you bank too hard and don't pay attention to your pitch, you're probably making this next mistake, which is keeping you from landing the way you want. And that is you're coming in too fast. Yeah, here are the 2 simplest ways that I use to slow myself down when I'm coming in too fast. One thing I do is obviously I pull power sooner rather than later. The less power that you're producing, the less speed and energy you're gonna have to bleed off later on in the approach/land. The next one is pitching the nose up. Yeah, so after you turn on the final, you wanna make sure that you've given yourself enough space to get configured. If you feel like you're rushing, you're probably not giving yourself a long enough space or a long enough final to get your plane ready to land. Now that you've done these 2 things, you wanna pitch the nose to your aiming point and try and maintain glide slope. So obviously we've all had where we're configured and we're coming into land, but we notice our speed is a little high. What's our next step? First, what I like to do is pull power back and watch what happens to my speed. If you're maintaining glide during this time, then you found the ideal power setting. Yeah, if you're still fast, pitch the nose up a little bit, and then make sure your sight picture is still aligned with your aiming point. This is why you want to give yourself extra space during final so you can make these small corrections before you land. Yeah, but after you've given yourself plenty of space to get configured, you want to make sure you don't do this next mistake, and that is coming in too slow. Hopefully by now you have a better understanding of the correlation between pitch and power. Yeah, so one of the things that I like to do if I'm coming in too slow is immediately put power back in. Depending on where I'm at, my altitude will depend on the amount of power that I put in. But usually it's anywhere between 100 to 300 RPM, and then I'll adjust my pitch from there. However, if you give it too much throttle at this point, you can be making this next mistake, which is floating. If you find yourself floating down the runway, try this. I'm doing pattern work and I find myself floating more often than not. Instead of landing with 30 degrees of flaps, I'll try landing with 20 degrees and see if that helps. That's a quick and easy way to kind of just keep doing what you're doing and just adjust one minor thing and then kind of see how that goes. But if that doesn't help and you find yourself still floating down the runway, try and understand the difference between flare and round out. That was a huge game changer for me. All right, so to recap what we learned in this video, we talked about knowing the difference between a flare and a round out. We talked about how to avoid overshooting final. We talked about what we can do if we're coming in too fast for final. We talked about what we can do if we're coming in too slow. And last, we talked about what we can do if we're still floating down the runway. If you're a new pilot and you're looking for some habits to help you get better at flying, I recommend watching this video over here. And until next time, stay safe out there.